as mentioned, I'm Spivak. I work at Mozilla, doing, among other things, overseeing MDN. I assume most people know what MDN is, but just in case you don't, it is our documentation site for web standards. This is me, in case you're looking. I'm not great at social media, but you can find me on Twitter under Spivak. I'm going to take a little walk back into the dark ages, way back into 2005, when we started MDN at Mozilla, a bit before my time there. And it started out as actually MDC, the Mozilla Developer Center, which was a collection of documentation that moved over after Netscape forked off into Mozilla. And the original purpose of MDN actually was to document Firefox internals, in case you're unaware of that fact. So a lot of Zool and Gecko and various other browser things were originally documented on the site. And over the years, web standards documentation was added. And we noticed a few years later, around 2010, 2011, that most people were interested in the web standards documentation, and more of the documentation of the platform was actually being done in the platform code itself. And so around that time, around 2013, we shifted focus on MDN much more to focus on the standards documentation, and the team shifted and began doing more and more documentation of HTML, CSS, and very specifically JavaScript, which I think is where most people come to find MDN and start using the documentation. Around a little over a year ago, we actually decided to rebrand MDN a bit to make it really, really clear what we're doing. So it's now MDN Web Docs. And all of the Firefox documentation is actually moved into Firefox. So it's very specifically just web standards. I can't click things. And we really define the mission of MDN, again, provide developers with information they need to build things on the open web. What does that really mean? It means that we collaborate pretty closely with the W3C, with Google, with Microsoft, with Samsung, and others to make sure that we're prioritizing properly the types of things that developers care about and want to read. We've also done a lot more documentation of web APIs and digging more into other technologies, which I'll talk about in a few moments. We have a fairly small team at MDN. As far as funded by Mozilla, there's about 3 devs and 6 writers total. But we also have a large community that contributes to MDN. So MDN is a wiki. It's actually homegrown wiki built in Django, so it's Python. It is a bit of a Franken platform at this point over several years. I think we've had 3 incarnations of the wiki. And one of the big projects we're looking at moving forward is how can we shift more of the platform itself to more modern platform. So we've started doing some experiments with GitHub as well. So we have a pretty large community, thousands of wiki contributors. Most are volunteers, some are from other browser vendors. Again, we have our staff. We also have a browser compatibility project. So on every reference article on MDN, if you go down to the bottom or scroll down, you'll see a table listing the compatibility of that standard across the browsers. We pulled a lot of that data out of the wiki and have it in a GitHub repository that actually has 300 plus contributors and a lot of commits. The data is maintained by Mozilla, Samsung, Google, Microsoft, and a lot of volunteers as well. So we're keeping all of that content really updated to make sure that we've always got the best data around what the standards are. This project is still ongoing. If you're interested in contributing, you can find, I think it's browser compatibility data under MDN on GitHub. I have a link posted in the reference on the slides as well. The great thing about the browser compatibility project, though, is that because it's in a machine-readable format, we're actually able to share that data outside of MDN. So we're doing things like integrating with dev tools, particularly VS Code. So they're actually using some MDN data in their CSS. So we're also looking at adding error messages and various other things. The Firefox DevTools have integrated MDN's JavaScript error messaging. So if you get an error message, you'll see a summary and a link to the MDN page that describes that error in detail. We also do Hack on MDN events. These are twice a year, and we get sort of core contributors to the MDN project together in one place for about 3 days. We've just started lately specifically picking topics. So back in March, we all met in Paris and did a Hack on MDN event around browser compatibility, fixed a bunch of bugs, did a ton of pull requests. I think it took us a couple months after the hack to get all the pull requests actually reviewed. And we just had one in September in London where we focused on accessibility, both on updating our accessibility documentation and making MDN more accessible. That was a really fun event, and we're actually looking at doing mini hacks at other conferences. So if you are interested in doing a hack on MDN for something that you're interested in, please contact me. We're definitely enjoying having more sort of small ways where we can improve the documentation and also improve the platform as well. You can find us on the Mozilla MDN IRC channel. There's also a discourse. One thing that we did last year, roughly around this time, I believe, was we launched the MDN Product Advisory Board with all these lovely people. The advisory board is designed really to, well, it was originally designed to, again, solicit feedback from people in other browser makers and contributing to standards, making sure that the things that are being documented on MDN are the right things for both the industry and for web developers. So we have members from Microsoft, Google, Samsung, Buku, Mozilla, obviously, and we discuss a lot of things around what our the content roadmap, what standards are coming up, what is being implemented across browsers. But it's also provided this amazing conduit outside of MDN. So working with the W3C, we've had a lot of really interesting discussions about not just how we document standards, but how do you get people information about things that are pre-standard, or things that are good for the web but wouldn't necessarily be in browsers. So browser compatibility, as I mentioned, we have brand new browser compatibility tables which have come from some of the discussions that we've had through the product advisory board. We're looking at adding a lot of new browsers as well, so getting more into things like UC for large amounts of the world. Interestingly enough, we've seen a vast increase of people coming to MDN from China, like probably 150, 200% year-over-year increase. It's our third largest user group coming to MDN. Yet we don't really provide great data for the most common browsers used in China. And so that's an area that we're really looking at growing as part of the browser compatibility data project, and looking at ways that we can reach out into different regions and different areas. One of the biggest projects that's coming up next year is we're looking at ways we can personalize the browser compatibility tables. So as a user of MDN, if you have a specific set of browsers, so if you're doing, say, you're focused on mobile development, or you're really interested in just mobile browsers, you'll actually be able to create an account, log in, and specify what primary browsers you want to see in the browser compatibility table, and then you can expand to see all the different browsers. So this will, I think, be a really, we hope, will really improve the workflow for people on MDN moving forward. And this is something you're interested in, it'll be part of our browser compatibility project on GitHub. We also just recently launched an entirely new section on MDN, mostly through conversations we've had with folks at W3C. And we're calling it web-related technologies. And again, this is areas where They're important to the web, but not necessarily browser specific. We've launched things for captioning, and we're working with EPUBs and some other groups to help their communities be able to document their technologies on MDN. We also have vastly improved the way that we mark experimental technologies on pages and the way we link to specs. And again, this is all through feedback that we've been getting from the advisory board and the people who are participating in it. As a side note, since there's, I think, a lot of people here from the working groups, if you are interested in participating in the project advisory board or have a recommendation for people you think should participate in the advisory board, we are always looking for new members. Having a broader set of people contributing to MDN and helping us set our direction is good. It's good for us, it's good for the web. So feel free to, I chair the board, so I'm always looking for new members and always open to having conversations about people who could or should join. And with that,